Let's talk a little bit about inheritance. So I'm going to make a console application, a Windows console application, and I'm going to add a few classes to this, and we'll see how inheritance works. So I'm starting off with my new console application. And I have in my Solution Explorer, I have the name of it, and right now I have my main method and a class called program. Okay, so let's start making some changes and adding on here. Okay, well first let's rename this class from the default name of program, and I'm going to highlight it, right click, refactor, and rename. And let's call it test driver. This will be our driver class. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. And it will apply all those changes. Okay. Let's go ahead and try it out. So I'm going to save this, debug, start debugging. And it looks like everything's working. Okay, so I've tested it, so we're off to a good start. Let me close this, and let's start adding some classes now. I'm going to go over here to my Solution Explorer. If I don't have my Windows set up, I can always go in and reset my Windows. Okay. Of course under Windows, so I can go ahead and reset the Windows layout if I don't have it laid out correctly. And from here, what I'm going to do is here's our namespace, and under our namespace we have all of our coding, so we will add the classes here. We'll add the classes here. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add, and I'm going to add a new class. Give it whatever name you want, and let's go ahead and add this. Once it's been added, I'm going to open this up. Double click on it, make sure I've got it selected, and let's add some code in here. And what I've done is I've added some code to this. What I've done is I've added a method, and this method is void, so it's not going to return anything. I give it the name of name. It's public, which means that this method can be seen outside of this class. And I'm passing a string, and the variable is called my name. Okay. And when we run this method, the only thing it's going to do is output hello, whatever variable, the value of whatever variable was passed, and then from my text class. Okay. So let's go back to our program, and right after hello world, let's go ahead and create an object out of this. My text class, and we'll call it our variable test. It's a new, and my text class, and we're going to pass it a string. Too far. Okay. Now, this is the constructor. Now it's giving me a complaint because it says, okay, the constructor that you have for my text class doesn't have a constructor in there that passes a string. So let's go take a look at it. Let me take this out. Let's go over here and see that right now we don't have a constructor, and a constructor is going to be a method with the same name as the class that normally what it does is initialize variables, but there's no constructor in there, so it'll be using a default constructor which doesn't accept. It's just a basic constructor. Can't pass parameters to it, you can't do anything. It's just a basic constructor, the default constructor. And you notice you don't see it, but it's automatically there if you don't have one. Okay, so let's go back to our program class. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and save all. Okay, so now that we've got that, this is from our main class. This is where our main class is where all the programming starts off, kicks off at, for our console application. And now that we have an object, let's try this. Let's say we've got an object made called test. I'm going to press the period, and you'll notice that we have all of the default methods that come with this, including one that we created, which is called name. This little box means that it's a method. So let's do that one now. And now this one is going to give us a little squiggly line because it says, okay, there's a method called name, but it needs to pass a variable. And in this case, we're going to put in a literal string constant in there. So it's okay now. Okay, so take a minute to look at this. Starting off with our test, hello world, make sure everything's working okay. We created an object. Let me get this back. And once we have test, the name of the object created, now we have access to everything in that class. And right now, the only thing we have is one method. Okay, and we're passing it a parameter, literal string content. Alright, let's go ahead and debug. Start debugging, and you'll see we have our hello world, and we have our hello
whatever the name was passed from my text class, which is right over here. So we accessed, when we created an object out of my text class 1, we automatically had access to everything that's public in here, and what's public right now is this method called name, and it's accepting a string, and it's giving it the name my name. It can be any variable that you want to choose. That's legal. And now we're just doing a console write line, which outputs the string constant hello, and then outputs the value of the parameter, and then outputs this whatever's in double quotes here, this literal string from my text class. Okay, so that's part 1, just creating a second class. Let's go on to inheritance. Close this out.
Okay. Let's go with the parent class first. Let's add some code to that. I'll pop it in here. 2 methods. Well, actually 1 method that we create. I've added a constructor onto this one. So our constructor, same name as the class. Constructors are going to be public so that we can use it from outside the class. And a method called print, and it's just going to output I'm the parent class. Okay. Let's go to the child class. Oops. Let's pop some code in there. Okay. Child class, constructor, and then we've got the main method, which is the starting point for this class. I'm going to change that a little bit. Okay. Well, I should have actually started a new project for this class, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I added a pause here. I use console read key this time, and it's giving me this does not contain a definition for print. Okay, that's because it's sitting over here in the a class called parent class, and again this has the constructor, and it has the print method in it. But to access that from here, what I need to do is inherit. And inheriting just allows me to have access to all of those variables and methods that are contained in that particular class. So if I go look at parent class now, what I have access to, the only thing I really have access to is this print. Well, I could also access the constructor here, but that'll be done automatically. But what I have access and added on new here is this print method in my parent.class. So if I go over here to child class and I make sure I inherit everything that's in that parent class, I have automatic access to it. So in my static void main, and what I need to do is go back here and comment out everything from my program class to make sure that, so you can't have two main methods, you can't have two entry points into this one solution. So I'll comment this out for now, and this one I'm not using at all for now. So really I'm just looking at these two. Let me save all to make sure I've got it all saved. Okay, so it's the entry point is here now. Changed it to here. Okay, so let's run this. So what I've got here, since it starts here, what it does is it creates an object called child out of the child class, and it automatically calls that constructor child class. It automatically calls it. So when I go over here to my child class, it will call this constructor for me automatically. Okay. And when it does that, it will call, when it creates this new child class, it will automatically initialize the constructor for the parent class too. So we should see both constructors come back. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and run that. And debug. Start debugging. And so there, it did that. The parent class, it called the constructor, which says I'm the parent constructor. The child class, it went in and called the child constructor, which is up here. And then it ran the print method for the child class. And the print method, is it in the child class? No, it's in the parent class. So it had automatic access to that. Okay, it takes a while to get used to, but walk through things like this a couple times and practice a lot, and it will start to make sense after a while. Okay, that's all for this example.